That is the path we choose, Mr. Speaker.
Right.
That is the path of Budget 2025.
Yes.
I see even smile on the other side, Mr. Speaker. That's a good sign.
Let's find out what those smiles were about in the House of Commons yesterday. François-Philippe Champagne there, and the tabling of the federal budget. We're joined this morning by Melissa Lantsman, the Conservative Party's deputy leader. Ms. Lantsman, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Before I get to budget, I need to ask you about unity in your caucus. Of course, we saw Chris d'Entremont, the MP from Nova Scotia, cross the floor yesterday, join the Liberals. To me, it seems, as the Liberals and Mark Carney tables his first budget, this is a time to see unity amongst Conservatives if you're going to put up a fight against that budget. Whether it's the news of yesterday or rumors we're hearing about possible other people crossing the floor, why isn't there more unity in your caucus?
Well, I mean, I can't speak to Chris, but for Chris, I think he's made his decision that he doesn't want to fight inflation. He doesn't want to fight for an affordable Canada, and he doesn't want to fight for the very things that he was sent here 3 times as a Conservative to fight for. So I think Chris is going to have to, that's the guy who crossed. He's going to have to explain that to his constituents, perhaps even in a by-election where he can get elected as a Liberal. But that one is a decision that he made. Look, we don't traffic in rumors. I think we are focused on making sure that we point out all of the ineffective spending that this budget is going to bring, that's going to raise the cost of living on every Canadian, on food, on homes, on everything else Canadians buy. There's a lot of people who are looking at this budget asking what's in it for them, and the answer is nothing.
And the Liberals are just 2 seats away from a majority now. The Prime Minister was asked this morning, if he's courting other people, and he said, he'd love to have a majority by Christmas in order to go forward with what he outlined in the budget here. So let me ask you if maybe it's not in your party, but are you worried about others crossing the floor? And what would it mean if the Liberals did end up with enough seats in the House to have a majority?
Well, hypothetical situations, I think, are not where we are. I think Canadians didn't give them a majority. They gave the balance of power to other parties to hold this government to account. That's exactly what we're doing. And don't forget, from our perspective, 41% of the votes, over 8 million Canadians who are expecting an affordable budget for an affordable life right now didn't get that and hasn't gotten that from all of Mark Carney's promises that he's made in the last 6 months.
I'm trying to figure out if I should ask you what's right with this budget or what's wrong with this budget, and I don't know which one provides the better opportunity for you here. But yeah.
I'll give you sort of the top line. If you look at these numbers, $80 billion of deficit spending, which is just eye-popping. If you remember that Trudeau spent 42 in the last one, which was also eye-popping. He's doubled this. We've got we've got larger deficits than the Trudeau government, now over 2% of GDP, all through 2030. We've got a rising deficit, which now costs more than we transfer provinces in healthcare just to service, so just to pay the interest on that debt. And if you're an ordinary Canadian that's having a hard time putting food on the table, a roof over their head, you got your kids living in your basement, nobody can get a job, there is nothing in this for you that's going to make life more affordable. This budget makes a big mistake of action for outcome, and it's measuring success by spending and not results. And they promised a generational budget, and I think we got a very conventional Ottawa budget.
Now, your leader, Mr. Pierre Poilievre, said that your party will not be supporting this budget. Would you like to see this budget not succeed? And a snap election come out of this? Because if you're not going to support it, the other parties don't want to support it. Where do we end up? So would you want to see an election?
I can tell you that we cannot possibly support this budget. And I think that question is for a minority government that's supposed to be working in good faith with other parties to include their voices in the budget. This government didn't do that. They're brought forward instead a costly budget, rattling the cages, threatening a costly election. And it really is up to a minority government to get the support from other parties to be able to pass their budget. That's the job here.
The Liberals are saying, they're supercharging some types of investment to increase productivity. I think we've talked a lot about how productivity is an issue in this country. Whether it's these new deductions or other measures is there anything you like in this budget aimed at business and aiming at improving the economy?
Yeah, look, on the productivity, I think it's a small step, but I think it's wholly inefficient for the time that we're in. If you look at the situation that we're in with the U.S., we've got to go beyond matching U.S. competitors. We need to outcompete and attract investment. And the words say one thing in the budget, but the tables, the math, the real parts tell a very different story. We have decreasing investment. It's right in their budget. Since the month that Mr. Carney became prime minister to the very end of the year, that has investment fleeing this country and not coming in. And those are the projections going forward. I think a focus on making sure that we get rid of the regulations to allow the private sector to be able to build things like the emissions cap, things like the tanker ban, things like an industrial carbon tax, which is making food, homes, everything we produce more expensive, and not giving businesses the certainty they need to actually invest in Canada. So I think it's wholly inefficient for the time that we're in, and I think that many people will see that as we move forward. This budget promises a brighter tomorrow, but for a lot of people, tomorrow never comes.
Let me ask you about the immigration stuff in this budget. There's money to attract talent to Canada, research chairs, and bringing researchers to Canadian universities. But on the immigration front, similar numbers for permanent residents, a little bit more of a focus on economic migrants, but temporary immigration slashed to 385,000 compared to 673,000 as it stands right now. What is your take on how this budget handles immigration?
Yeah, look, I know you've talked about this a lot, and we used to have a consensus in this country where the immigration levels were about 250,000, where we attracted economic immigrants. There is so much more you can do on credentialing. We have, doctors who are not working at the fullest scope of their practice or education, some of them even driving Ubers, and we desperately need doctors, both in Quebec and right across the country for so many millions of Canadians that don't have one. We have a responsibility on immigration. We have a responsibility to make sure that those numbers match the availability of jobs, of housing, and of healthcare. And these numbers are too high.
Ms. Lantsman, I have to leave it there. I want to thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Melissa Lantsman is the deputy leader of the Conservative Party.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years.
And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.